Welcome, acupuncturists, Taoist immortals, and blood-sucking billionaires, to episode 477 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 7th of March, asterisk, 2023, and featuring Sarah Jane Smith, The Tao Connection, written by Barry Letts and starring Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and with me are color commentator Alex Fireheart
Hello.
and technical director Mad Matt Winchell.
This is my one day off.
How's everyone's week going?
Um, I mean, it's fine at the moment now that my joints aren't fucking giving me trouble. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's been like sometimes it's not as bad, and then I'll go to work and all the aircon will just get into it and make it worse. And it's like, I'm probably going to have to see a doctor about it because it's been shooting up my arm into my neck now. But it's also fades as well. So it's like, I don't know what the fuck is going on.
It's almost like either like a pinched nerve or something.
Probably. I mean, I know that's the explanation my dad's thought it might be because it's going. Sometimes it'll go down my leg. Sometimes I'll feel it in my arm and shoulder.
I was at first I was like, oh, maybe
I think
it's
I felt it in my back, so
I was like, at first I was like, maybe a COVID complication, but now I don't think so.
I mean, when it was just my legs, I thought it might have been as a side effect of COVID because COVID did seem to fuck my legs up a bit, somewhat. Like the first 2 days or so when I had it at the tail end of last year, I could barely walk. But yeah, so I thought it was like at first it was a side effect of that, but I feel like I felt something in my back that seems to go in both directions, so it might be like a pinched nerve or something in my back that's in just the right spot to mess with my arm and leg.
I know, at least after I got COVID, it took roughly 4 to 5 months before I could take the stairs and not be out of breath. And I don't get a choice because of this house either.
Right.
Well, I guess as for how the previous week has gone, I got randomly called into work at a different location on Saturday, which I was supposed to have off. Went okay, fine. I just got a raise, so it's gonna be a heck of a lot of money just for those 7 hours. Might as well. Get over there, and immediately their first question is, you're the person that's been called in to help with kitchen? I don't do kitchen. The most I know how to do with kitchen was washing dishes and cleaning some of our appliances on floor when we're closing. That's it.
I have had, I've been short on cooks and called cashiers and just been like, yeah, just wash dishes for 4 hours.
Well, this is like middle of the day. We need actual food out there. So
it's not the same as closing. Got it.
Yeah, not even remotely closing time, and this is a 24-hour store anyways, so it wouldn't be closing anyhow. So the other two people who were there, the majority of my time there, who I think the combination between the two of them, about 3 or 4 days of experience in kitchen, basically hodgepodge their way through it for about 5 hours. Until an actual kitchen staff person arrived. Then the person I was supposed to relieve finally went home. The reason why they wanted to leave was because they were feeling sickly, but all of a sudden I come in and I don't know kitchen, and furthermore, to add to the complications, There was supposed to be another person there that didn't show up, and the way they were talking sounded like they haven't shown up for their last 3 or 4 shifts. So
Hmm.
they're basically just sounding like they're ready to tell the management to either fire this useless person and don't even consider them to be showing up for work whatsoever, or we might as well just walk too. Because apparently they're very short-handed and they just don't need this BS right now.
Mm. Although being short-handed is one reason why they might continue to tolerate it for a bit longer.
They're actually
'Cause it's
looking so
like-
short-handed that it sounds like a couple of them have only been there a couple of weeks and are already going, I didn't sign for this.
Yeah.
So, we'll see how that goes. I'm already going to have to help them. Is it this Monday or is it next Monday? I think actually it was. I was already working at our store this Monday, so yeah. On the 13th, I'll be going back to that store again for 4 hours, and only 4 hours, especially if things are that bad again. Bye bye. Ducking out of there as fast as possible. Other
Yeah,
than
you
that,
had posted when you had posted your most recent song, the caption, I was looking at that sideways like, wait, is he saying he quit his job?
that was the song that played when I considered quitting my. Was very definitely sure I was quitting the previous job before this one.
Got you.
Yeah. The original version of that song played, and I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
I think I'm done here. They're gonna break my stride. So other than that, I've not been able to play Conan Exiles a lot lately because there's a meter in the game that goes up when you're doing certain things, and if the meter like hits critical mass, I believe it's on like late nights or weekends that we can get invaded by really tough, nasty things. I don't have a lot of defenses right now around my base, and honestly, we're kind of at best down to like normally 2 players. Technically, Randy is around, but he's not always reachable, and technically Ed is around, but he's not always interested in playing Conan, but he might for something like that. So basically, it's just me and Sarah, and we've been just like coasting, like pop in real quick, check on things, and log the heck out as soon as possible, because even being on there for like 10-15 minutes can cause the meter to go up. So even just sitting on the game causes it to rise. So it's just like, yeah, quick check things. All right, things are processing and out. So I haven't been able to play that as much as I want to lately, and I've been kind of looking at my list of games I've been trying to get through. I've actually managed to get a stream in this last week for some more Thief Deadly Shadows. That's the 3rd game. I'm trying to get through that so I can finally play 4, which was the most recent game, like about 6 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. But I've been really eager to play it. I just want to make sure I know everything before I go into it, because I do believe it's technically still a sequel, even though there's some weird bits of maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Bloody hell, that game is almost 10 years old. Came
It's
out in
almost 10.
2014.
So it's 9 years at the moment then. All right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to get at this game for 9 years. I want to get this done so I can get to it and get that franchise finished for now. Because there's also another game that's kind of similar to it, at least another stealth series, which I now just found out today that the company behind that stealth series is now closing its doors. So I need to buy up number 2 of that franchise before it's canceled, and apparently they still have things set up so that servers will be live for multiplayer for that game. And honestly, if it's popular enough, there's going to be fans keeping fan servers up for that anyways. But I just want to get a hold of that game before it's gone off the Steam stores and whatever in a couple of months. So, yeah. Something, the race is real, and it's like, I don't have time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to get that game yet soon. I did mention I just got a raise recently, and my last paycheck was extra $100.
Oh, nice.
And I immediately spent all that $100 in one weekend. I forget how I ended up on Amazon, bought an entire Poltergeist trilogy box set and a really hard to get movie called Equinox.
Okay, so you're like, I forget how. I'm like, you got your paycheck, you blacked out, and you woke up with an Amazon confirmation email.
More like I was just like carousing because I finally had a day off, and all of a sudden I just saw a thing about not Phantasm, Poltergeist,
Poltergeist.
and just went, "That's a franchise I should have and haven't had yet. Give me a moment." Here it is. Oh shoot. Oh, and I got Equinox too. This one's hard to get. You know what? It's better that I bought it now instead of later. This thing's already $20 on its own. It's gonna be like 40 in like another 5 years.
Mm.
Because it's an out of print already thing, so it's out of print, it's a rare find, etc. It's just gonna get more expensive now. And what else was there? Oh, one of the YouTubers I watch had a birthday thing, and I believe I bought a $20 poster.
Okay.
Yeah, they had an art poster, so it's like, out of all the stuff there, I'm like, yeah, that looks like the most reasonable thing. Sure, I'll grab that. I'm trying to think if there's something else. I think that's about it.
So welcome to the world of the gainfully employed. You get a raise, and they work you too much to have to be home and enjoy your things. So you spend the raise money on things that you won't be home to enjoy.
Well, we'll see about that. I am actually a part of another. I believe I've mentioned before. I'm a part of another podcast now. That's usually been lately on Wednesdays. They were looking at Wednesday again this week, but also Saturday was open this week. And I'm like, Saturday. I'm working tomorrow. Saturday. I can stream before then and maybe get some more Thief done. Saturday. But also I've decided to also use that as my opportunity to essentially record highlights of us reacting to the films as we watch them before the podcast. Because we'll also do watch-alongs essentially with it.
Okay.
So I'm going to be doing that, slim it down to like maybe 5 minutes of reactions to the movies or something like that, and then my final thoughts, and then that'll be my own video, while we still keep the podcast its own thing too.
Sounds like a good setup.
Yeah. So there's so some of the stuff that we don't normally wouldn't be using for podcast, I'll keep and I'll use for my own means. And then we still have our final thoughts for the podcast itself immediately after the viewing. So, yeah.
All right. Let's see.
And my first test of this plan is that we just watched last week, The Wizard.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen that movie all the way through. And if I have seen it all the way through, I haven't seen that since I was like 5. So, I'm trying to remember what we're doing next. I think it was another one that I haven't seen all the way through, at least not in a very, very long time. Oh, you know what? I just realized I could have done that for a thing tonight, but oh well. I'll try to remember for next time.
Gotcha. As for myself, since the last podcast, last time I called in, I was at a conference. I then proceeded to go through the conference, not get a lot of sleep, travel, so even less sleep. Of course, Tuesday came around. I finished my classes. I lay down for, I don't know, a nap or something. And then I woke up to my phone vibrating saying it's time to join the podcast call. And meanwhile, I hadn't even started listening to the episode yet. So I went on to Discord and I said, my bad. And then I went back to sleep.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the rest of us are like, does that mean it's canceled tonight? And I just like, yeah, I think it's canceled. He's not even around anymore.
Yeah, I was saying, Alex asked, and then once I saw it, I saw that you had already responded. Yeah, You responded 4 minutes later, and I was like, okay, they've made a consensus without me. I don't need to respond.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's dead. I'm pretty sure this is literally the anime equivalent of you poking him with a stick, and he's just going to raise a hand and just try and shoo you away quietly.
Otherwise, since then, I realized I forgot to cancel my free trial for Nintendo Switch Online, but that actually worked out because there was a surprise new Pokemon drop with 2 new Paradox forms that I managed to catch using the online raids. So I've got my Walking Wake and Iron Leaves after much effort. Which reminds me, I'm trying to decide the next game I should buy because there's now a lot of Pokemon games on Switch, and I've played exactly 2 of them. And I'm not in a rush to go out and buy a new console. In fact, I may not be able to afford to this summer like I had planned to because of surprises I can't talk about yet. But yeah, so I may just be looking to buy like 2 or 3 more Pokemon games to get through 2023. And I think that's about the most interesting things that have happened to me in the last 2 weeks.
Honestly, I think for consoles, you're just better off sitting on Nintendo anyways.
Well, I want to buy. So my intention has been to buy a PS5 before the second part of Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out, and Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 are both coming out within the next 8 months or so. So I would have wanted a PS5 to play both of those on, but I probably will hold off unless it's cheaper than I expect, which I doubt.
For me, it really depends on where they're going with 7 Part 2, if I'm even going to be
Oh, you're
remotely
going to wait and
interested.
see if it's faithful or if they go way off.
If they go completely bonkers and ruin it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I swear to God, if there's a buy Eris's life back option, I'm gonna tell this game off so hard.
Yes, some people are saying, oh, you're saying like buy with actual cash?
Well, if they either rewrite it to protect her, or if they literally make it a DLC option to bring her back,
Right.
It's like either way, I don't care. No.
Some people are saying because of how Part 1 ended that now they have to keep Aerith alive, and some people are saying, and I agree with this latter point that it really defeats the purpose of the whole Final Fantasy VII story.
Yes.
If they're just going to be like, oh, now she doesn't die and everything's all happy. Like,
you completely warp and twist every kind of important decision in the story up to that point.
And I think I have seen 1 or 2 people say, well, if they, to keep the emotional stakes the same, like maybe like Tifa dies instead or something. But I'm like, I don't even I get what you're saying, but that even still feels forced to me.
Yeah, that feels like a forced replacement. You're still undermining the importance of Eris and her sacrifice to get things done. That's still BS.
So yeah, I don't know. I want to see where they're going with the new story threads, but at the same time, I also really want, the whole point of the remake, right? To see some of these moments played out in, a modern voice acted game.
Oh yeah, I would love to if they're not gonna completely jumble up and destroy the plot. I would love to see it all properly acted out like they have been in the previous game, and they fleshed out a lot of characters a lot more too. I would love to see that with some more of the characters.
And if they don't
have
change
the time to do it,
if they don't change too much, I could even imagine that fans will probably come out with a mod that kind of just gets rid of all the additions for people that only want to play scenes that were in the original and none of the added content.
Yeah, at least for PC, I can see that for sure. Yeah.
Right. All right. So before we veer off into a gaming podcast, tonight's show, we've got birthdays and Doctor Who news, a little bit of geek talk, although none of us have seen Quantumania yet. Shame on us. We have our episode summary by Alex, I believe.
Yeah.
And our review, final thoughts, and ratings. On to the birthdays.
Yep. So on the 24th of February, we had David Goodison, who played Davros in Destiny of the Daleks, turned 82. On the 25th of February, we had Sadie Miller, who has played Natalie Redfern and Sarah Jane Smith for Big Finish, and is also the daughter of Elizabeth Sladen, turned 38. On the 26th of February, we had Ingrid Oliver, who played Petronella Osgood from 2013 to 2015, and who knows, maybe she'll come back at some point.
Maybe.
Turned 46. Also on the 26th, we had Tony Selby, who played Salomon Glitz in 86 and 87. Would have been 85, but died in 2021 at 83.
Still wanted him to get in a new Who episode, but it's too late.
On the 28th of February, we had Katie Wicks, who played Rhiannon Davies in Torchwood Children of Earth, who turned 43. And also on the 28th, we had Murray Gold, who did the incidental and title music from 2005 to 2017, turned 54. Moving on to March. On the 1st of March, we had Roger Delgado, who was the master from 71 to 73. Would have been 105, but died in 73 at 55. On the 2nd of March, we had Michael Troughton, who played Professor Albert in The Last Christmas, and is the son of Patrick Troughton, turned 68. And also on the 2nd of March, we had Stephen Thorne, who played Omega in The Three Doctors, among other roles. Would have been 88, but died in...
Oh, I had a typo there, apparently.
Dum, dum, dum,
Oh, are you checking?
dum, dum. I'm waiting.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
I'm filling in silence.
Well, no, I heard the which is the universal sound of somebody who's in the process of Googling. What day was that? That was the tooth. He was 84 when he died.
Okay. So yeah, would have been 88, but died in 2019 at 84. On the 5th of March, we had Matt Lucas, who played Nardole from 2015 to 2016, more so known for things like Little Britain, etc. Turned 49. And on the 7th of March, we had Gordon Fleming, who is the director of the Arrow Doctor Who films, who would have been 89 but died in 95 at the age of 61. So happy birthday to all of those folks.
Yes, we have a little bit of a long list this time. That's what happens when it's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, we have a chunk of future episode news, and the first bit is that there will be a 2023 Red Nose Day special for Doctor Who. Apparently, this was released in Doctor Who magazine, and apparently, people who were like sharing the photos on Twitter were getting we're getting DMCA notices, which I don't even think the DMCA applies in Britain, but I don't even know. Maybe they endorsed it or something. But I think they're just notices that there is a special coming. It doesn't really say much of what's in it, other than the fact that we have David Tennant as the 14th Doctor, and Sir Lenny Henry, who might be playing Daniel Barton again. We don't know. Maybe they're just playing themselves. But that's a thing. Let's see. Yeah, there's not really anything else other than information on how to donate, as since Red Nose Day is a charity event hosted by the BBC. And viewers can tune in on March 17 at 7 p.m. On BBC One and iPlayer, and probably YouTube at this point, right? Or maybe they wait an hour, maybe they wait and put it on YouTube. But so on March 17, we'll see what it's all about.
Yeah, it might come out to YouTube at least a week later at the soonest, I would assume.
Right. Did I not? I must have closed more tabs than I thought I did. Okay. Then again, it's just a weird opening that makes it look more boring than it is. But a brief bit on the 2023 Christmas special. Doctor Who magazine has heard from the visual effects coordinator, Sian Rainish, might be pronounced Sean. I'm honestly not sure. It involves a diacritic that I don't know how to pronounce. But they mentioned that they're using top-range technology, the kind that Marvel films use, which they think is pretty spectacular. So they're, it should be pretty high tech for Doctor Who. They say in the Christmas special they're shooting with drones on set, which no one's done before. Because of the way the Doctor races erratically around the TARDIS, it's amazing to have those kinds of shots. And this is actually also the first time that anybody has actually referred to Beep the Meep by a name from the BBC. Obviously, fan sites and everything have said, "Oh yes, this is pretty obviously this creature from the comics." But the VFX coordinator specifically said, when you're watching at home, think of the amount of conversations we've had over how much of the Meep blinks. So if there was doubt in anyone's mind, we can pretty much confirm, yes, this is exactly who we think it is.
It is Meep.
Yes.
It is definitely Meep. And they're literally talking about how often it blinks. It's like, no, that's too much. It's too much. It looks guilty. No, that's too little. It looks creepy.
Right. That's it for that.
By the look of it, I would assume that basically this is an animatronic, is it not? Maybe an animatronic with some CG enhancements?
There were on-set photos of it, so it's got to be at least either animatronic or... do you think... I don't know what the size is supposed to be. It might be too small for a person in a costume.
It's too small for a person in a costume. Like, they're like, at best, knee tall. Like, about foot tall.
It's either a mix or it's animatronic for sure.
Unless they made bigger than what Meep was originally, but it's supposed to be a relatively short creature. That's also the universe's biggest troublemaker, so we'll see how well that goes.
I thought the Doctor was the universe's biggest troublemaker.
How little you know of the universe.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't surprise me if it was a matter of like something doable, practical, that the actors can interact with maybe some CG touch-ups.
And honestly, this is going to have a bigger budget than the usual BBC affair, so I could definitely see them making something animatronic that's going to actually look decent and be right there for them.
Well, yeah, I was gonna joke like, so that's where that Disney money is going.
The Disney money went to the Meep, so we could also make toys of it later.
True.
Very true. Merchandising.
Our next bit of news, we move on to Series 14, with the news that the third filming block of Series 14 started on March 1st, which also happened to be St. David's Day, which is I've seen referred to by Welsh people as the Welsh St. Paddy's Day. I don't think that has anything to do with filming, but people might be interested. We know that it includes at least 2 episodes, with the first one referred to as an opening episode, which might mean that it's part of an arc, unless it's actually the opener for the season. These episodes are directed by Julianne Robertson, with cinematographer Tobias Datum and assistant director Dan Mumford. Um, Anything else of interest here? Not really that I can see.
I'm sorry. Why does Julie's name sound familiar?
I know we covered news of finding out she was directing on the podcast. I don't know if there was from anything else.
My brain keeps wanting to tell me I know her from something, but I don't know why.
Let me see.
Apparently, she's done directing work for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And quite a lot. But this does seem to be the first directing work she's done for Doctor Who.
Okay, she won BAFTAs.
Apparently, there's multiple IMDb people with that name.
Curses and Drat.
Definitely seeing mostly US credits.
I don't know why. It just suddenly popped in my brain. Like, I've heard this name before. I know it. I'm just trying to remember why.
I still haven't found the profile you're looking at, so.
Well, I just found her in one click. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Bridgerton, One for the Money, The Last Song. Those are supposed to be her most popular known for things. Yeah, I don't know why. Her name just sounds very familiar. Maybe it's because it has been coming up lately, but it just suddenly struck me as very familiar.
Wait. So the one that I see associated with Brooklyn Nine-Nine is Robinson. This is Robertson. Oh no, wait, it's a typo. Because it's it's a typo not by me, by Cultbox. Cultbox fucked up the name. Okay, so I was going off of what Cultbox wrote in the article, whereas the correct name was the one on the Instagram posts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that would explain why we were looking at two completely different people. Yeah, that's right. We looked her up when it was mentioned. We talked Castle Rock, Bridgerton. But yeah, we kind of critiqued her CV looking for sci-fi when she was announced. Orange is the New Black. So some supernatural stuff, some drama. I'm not sure if Brooklyn Nine-Nine is drama or comedy. Okay.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine's comedy.
I was gonna say it sounds like it should be a comedy.
So we have drama, comedy. I think you would probably classify Castle Rock as probably urban fantasy. I'm guessing just based on the setting.
Yeah. A horror fantasy, actually, or a horror modern fantasy. Yeah. So actually, there's enough there to still say that she has good credentials for this. But anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry to the sideline. I just was like, why is my brain aching?
Gotcha. And then our final bit of news is we have an audiobook announcement, and that is so the making of Doctor Who was apparently the first nonfiction book, or the first professionally published nonfiction book about production of Doctor Who back in 1972. That surprises me a bit because Dalek Mania happened a few years before that, but maybe no books actually talked about the production that were officially published.
If anything, I think the Dalek Mania professional stuff would probably have been just, again, focused on the Daleks and not so much Doctor Who in general.
But it was originally written by Malcolm Hulke and then rewritten by Terrence Dicks. But it is now being adapted for audio publication by Piccolo Books, Piccalo, not spelled like the Namekian or the musical instrument. Um, the audio version is brought to life by familiar Doctor Who voices, including John Culshaw, Dan Starkey, Maureen O'Brien, Louise Jameson, Katie Manning, and Jeffrey Beavers.
Hmm.
It is available for pre-order for the 1st of June from Apple Books and Google Play. Not Audible, at least not yet, but maybe it will be by the over time. Who knows?
Right.
And that is the end of our news.
So our one bit of geek talk is the new Hellraiser, the remake.
Yeah. Yep, and you know, I have seen the first 4 Hellraiser movies
Mm-hmm.
and this is worse than any of those, because my god, like some of those, even if they're like kind of bad, they're like and like it would not surprise me if anything from like the 5th to the 10th Hellraiser movie are worse than this. But
I would be surprised, but I'm going to say this before you get going here, is that I remember there's a lot of hubbub about this coming out, and just people like, oh, it's just closer to the original story and all that, and then as soon as it released, everyone just went quiet. And I was interested in seeing what your opinion is, so this is going to be interesting. Go ahead.
So it was intended to be closer to the Hellbound Heart than the other ones were?
Apparently, because the Pinhead Cenobite first one was originally intended to be a female Cenobite.
True.
It's one of those things where like the acting is good across the board, but the story just irks me so much. None of these characters have a functioning brain, and it like bugs the shit out of me. So many decisions I'm just shouting at the TV like, what are you doing? It's bugged the shit out of me so much. I was like, the movie was halfway done, and I'm saying like, oh, all the shit people give, like, Hellraiser 3. Hellraiser 4, I think, has more defenders, but like Hellraiser 3 is usually like, oh, that's the first bad one. I'll take that.
Hellraiser 3 is the first, like, the first 2 are masterpieces, so 3 is bad by default for not being as good.
Yeah.
But
it's the first one to make Pinhead an outright villain.
Yeah, it's Hellraiser as a slasher movie, so if you enjoy that, then it is what it is.
Yeah, and like, which I can get behind, I think mostly I can get behind in that one because Doug Bradley sells it for me.
Right.
This is like straight up a slasher in that all the characters have no brain and the Cenobites are basically evil. And it's like
the most basic kind of evil.
What are we doing? Yeah.
So
I mean, there's still like the lead Cenobite does not ever get like super loud or anything. It's very demure, like very calm. They're all very calm and all that. But it's still just like, what are we doing here? This plot makes no sense. Oh yes, we're going to run away from these interdimensional beings that can fucking teleport. Yes, that makes sense. Like, fuck's sake, it is so frustrating. I hate this movie. Like, I don't even think I did, but I hate this movie. It is fucking terrible. Like, I'm glad that I watched this on Paramount Plus, because if I even rented this on YouTube or something for like a couple of bucks, I would have felt cheated, because this is fucking terrible. And again, it's the story that's the problem. The acting is fine. The acting is pretty good in a lot of cases. But it's just the decisions are happening because the plot requires it to happen. None of vast majority of the decisions being made by these characters only makes sense if it's like, well, we need the plot to keep happening, so this is gonna happen, and it's just like, oh, fuck off, like.
Yeah, so
And it's funny because you were never going to be closer to the original story anyway, because the original movie was made by the author of the original book, who only tweaked a few things.
It was, but it's like it was originally a short novella, and I'm pretty sure it was pretty substantially different. Like the plot, I don't remember. Like it's been a long time. I remember the movie more clearly than the novella because I watched the movie many times and the novella once. But I swear the plots were pretty different.
I think it's more character relationships are very different. Like I think the lead woman is supposed to be like, is not related to them at all. She's just
I think the movie develops the characters more because the novellas just doesn't spend as much time on them. But I know since which we mentioned of other ones possibly being worse. I know that I've watched the first 9 movies in the franchise. From 6 through 9, it probably progressively gets worse and worse to 9 just being absolute trash.
Yeah, I remember
I have
seeing
not
clips
watched
of 9, and
10.
9 looks like a bad soap opera.
Number 10, I have not watched.
I've not seen 10, but I've seen the production of it happen, and it actually looked like it was really good.
I think I had heard that 10 was better than some of the ones that came before it, which is a low bar. It's not a high
bar,
bar,
but at least it's something.
It's like the bar is on the floor, and they managed to step over it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know where this would be number 11. I don't know where that falls in comparison.
No,
I think a lot of people really don't like number 5. I thought it was all right. It's a bit more of like a psychological horror type of movie, which maybe some people just don't want, but I liked it all right when I watched it.
Yeah. I mean, I know the one that gets the
too.
most. I know the one that gets the most crap is the one that was like written as something else. Well, I think that happens a few times where like
that happened a few times, yeah.
It was written as something else and then got rewritten as a Hellraiser movie.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I think that happened to almost all of them for like the last 4 of them, except for 10.
Wouldn't surprise me, but yeah, it's so disappointing because I feel like I'd heard good things, but maybe that was just like people's excitement going into it, and I just haven't heard anything since.
I think that was the excitement train, the oh my gosh, look at this looks like it's gonna be great train before the movie actually hit, and then as soon as the movie hit, I heard dead silence, and I'm like, hello, anybody?
Or it was,
you all got real quiet about this real quick.
Or it was like, I think I had some people respond to me ragging on the movie somewhat and being like, I didn't like hate it. So it was more like they wouldn't jump to its defense by any means, but they were like, I enjoyed it for what it was, kind of opinion. So very middle of the road.
Very middling opinions on it.
Yeah. So it's it bugs me that this did so poorly, because again, like the actress playing Pinhead, or I guess just credited as lead Cenobite, I think in this, is like, she's really good. I just wish she had a better movie. In fact, I basically wish all of these actors had a better movie.
Yeah, it just sounds like they were stapled to this really garbage plot that they couldn't do anything about.
Pretty much.
Which does happen to some movies, where everything else could be perfect, but it's just this really god-awful story, and we can't do anything to change it.
It sounds a lot like Kane Hodder, where I think he's widely considered one of, if not the best Jason, but he's also the star of the least liked Friday the 13th movies.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Jason Goes to Hell, in particular, is probably one of the 2 least liked movies of that series.
Generally, his were like the most underperforming ones.
I think he was in 8, 9, and 10, and
I I think he was in 7
I think it was.
as well.
Yeah, I think it was in
It was in
7
7
through
as well.
10.
Okay.
Yeah.
7 through. Yeah.
Yeah, 7 on up. Yeah, until Jason
Mhm.
versus Freddy.
Mm.
Yeah, I know he wasn't in Freddy versus Jason because they wanted someone taller.
Yeah, they want someone much
Well,
taller.
I think, yeah, it was both taller and that his movies were not well liked, from what I can tell. So
Maybe by the studio.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like the executives looked at the fact that his movies hadn't done well and were like, "Yeah, we're not going to use
You
him."
can't blame him. He was probably one of the better parts about those movies.
Right. I was gonna say, of all the things about Jason Takes Manhattan, no one complains about Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe what the plot does with him, but not
Maybe,
the
yeah,
actor.
maybe what the plot does with him, but not Jason himself. No,
Yeah.
because it was a very silly movie.
Mm.
But yeah. Alrighty. Well, now I
think
know.
that wraps up your thought.
I know to
Yep.
brace myself whenever I get there.
It'll be interesting now to watch like 5 through 10.
It's
and
to the point
see
now where
this
binging
falls.
the entire Hellraiser series feels like opening up the Lamarchian configuration on its own.
Right.
It starts with all the pleasure and then it's just pain, pain, pain.
Meanwhile, you just see a Klingon pop in from the corner, experience beige, and go back.
On to our summary.
Yeah, onto the summary. Who's the summary tonight? I didn't even see that.
Me.
Ah.
Yeah, like I offered to do it last week because with Randy's issues with his headset and all that, I figured
Yeah.
we probably won't have him for a while, and I was next in line anyway.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the stopwatch is ready when you are.
Yep.
All right. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay. A friend of Josh's named Toby. His body washes up in the Thames, but he mysteriously appears to be an old man, even though he's only 18. Sarah Jane and Josh find out about this and resolve to investigate what happened to him, which leads them to the Huang Tai Clinic in West Yorkshire, run by a man called Ron Sharp. The clinic turns out to be a facility to help older people regain a youthful appearance within reason through means of draining the life force from the young. After a few close calls, one of which involves Josh briefly having some of his own life force drained, they manage to discover that Will Butley, the man behind the secret of this whole setup, was born in 1697, making him approximately 305 years old. Later finding the secret to this form of extended youth in his younger years through a man he met in China, whom he killed to keep it a secret. It also comes out that this only keeps you youthful within reason in the sense that Will Butley, being as old as he is, but still appearing to be in his 90s by now. So it's more that it slows the aging process than reverses it entirely. Near the end, Ron Sharp and Will Butley get into an argument as Sharp managed to figure out the secret incantations, with Will taunting him until Ron starts to strangle Will. Will shoots Ron with a gun given to him by the bodyguard he paid off to get him one, immediately regretting it. Sarah Jane and Josh come back in, with Sarah refusing to give Will the draft she'd found due to all the people he's killed over the centuries, with Will finally dying as a result. We then cut to Sarah Jane and Josh meeting up with Natalie again, saying that they were let off when the police were called in, with it being implied that a woman we met earlier who works at the Ministry of Intelligence being the reason they were let off. They somewhat jokingly suggest the option of leaking all this to the press, but as they aren't exactly innocent parties themselves, they wave it off, before ending on a comment about the current Prime Minister looking younger and having a laugh about it. And that's the end, because I actively was like, this is a summary that would either go 6 minutes long because I would be discussing every little thing, or something that is very easy to trim
Just trim the middle fat and get to the main point at the beginning and end.
You didn't make that easy for Matt trying to figure out when to hit the stop button, huh? You just kept
Nope.
talking.
All of a sudden, just started back up again. Oh, is there something more? No, never mind.
Yeah,
You got it in 2 minutes 29 seconds.
I thought maybe I had lost track, spaced and lost minutes there, because 1 second you're just starting, and then the next second you're on the third act already. I was like, wait a second.
Well, I realized very quickly, a good hour of this is just them searching the manor. So, the facility. So I'm just like, do I really want to go into detail of, every little thing? I'll be here for 10 minutes. So it's like, let's just get the broad strokes across.
All right,
then,
well, sorry, go ahead.
And then, come back in at the end where, everything actually gets resolved.
Yeah. All right, well, I flipped a coin and it was heads, which means that Matt is once again first.
All right. So, journal of overall favorite thing then, hmm?
Yep. Oh, yeah, I should have said that, but we know.
Gosh, my brain suddenly doesn't want to remember names. The young man that's always with Sarah Jane in these ones now. I can't think of his name.
Josh.
Oh, the companion? Yeah, Josh.
Josh. We finally have some actual development for Josh. In particular, he likes lager.
He likes
last time he was nothing but complaints, but in this one he's just like, oh yes, lager, at least a couple times. Thank God, booze.
Okay, that's all, or?
That's like a general jokey comment, but in general he does seem to be a little bit better character in this one, and he does get captured at one point and rescued, and he just in general has a lot more to do other than just sit there and complain.
Okay. All right. Alex, what did you like?
God, let's see. I feel like I had something. And it's I mean, if I really want to, I can go with the obvious, but honestly, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna go with the obvious because it probably was it anyway. And that's just Elizabeth Sladen's acting. Because this is one of those things that reminded me, when she's impersonating the Yorkshire locals to pass as a essentially a maid, I guess. You can tell, even though this is audio, that she's just having fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels kind of like the couple of instances where she gets to do voices like that in Sarah Jane Adventures, where she's just like, ooh, I get to do something a little different.
Well, goody, I get to flex my acting muscle and do some weird stuff on set. Okay.
It would have been hilarious to see, either Sarah Jane Adventures Sarah or Fourth Doctor Sarah, try to pulling off that same routine on camera.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's about it.
All right. So I'm gonna say, because this was a complaint last time, I liked how the mystery and the supernatural elements were kind of sprinkled throughout. It was kind of foreshadowed before Sarah Jane and Josh ever arrived at the actual clinic. And there's weird things happening, and they're trying to they see hint here, hint there, before finally getting to the big reveal at the end. So for those who felt that the ending was really rushed last time, I think they paced it out a lot better, and a lot, it was a lot more diverse of what was happening in terms, or not, I don't know if diverse is right, but it was a lot more integrated into the story this time than last time, which is partially because we're not starting off with Sarah Jane working at a bank.
We're also not trying to introduce like 5 new characters, completely fresh face.
You're right.
Right.
All right, what we did not like, Matt.
Did not like. I'm not sure. Maybe maybe it's just a me thing, but did this one feel like it was getting borderline squicky for anyone else?
Yeah.
Like it didn't quite cross that line, but it was getting really darn close to the point of, oh god, too much information. Did not need.
I mean, well, with the villains being literal vampires, essentially, even though some of them didn't know about it.
More like some of the horrific things they've done in their private lives, kind of stuff. Was starting to reach borderline.
Gotcha.
Like it was becoming like it was like a whisker's hair away from just going, okay, TMI, no. It already was TMI, but it was almost about to cross the line of way too much TMI.
And
I understand that a lot of that is generally a setup for why these villains are at each other's throats, but at the same time, it's like, did not need. Maybe push that back a little bit, not so hard next time, please, guys. Tish. But yeah, that was generally one of my things that I was like, almost took me out of the story once or twice.
Okay, Alex.
So, yeah,
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just to say the same thing, Alex.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Basically, piling on to that, the issue I had for the most part was tone. Like, it's not always an issue, but like they're not necessarily like going too dark and then undercutting way too much all the time. But this did feel somewhat like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's that one Eighth Doctor story that I know both me and Matt were both kind of like, I don't need this from
the really nasty
Doctor.
body horror one.
Yeah.
It was not that bad, but it was definitely approaching that.
Yeah, it was definitely it felt very okay. We're delving into Torchwood territory here a bit. And this feels weird to have Sarah Jane in Torchwood.
Yeah, this feels a little bit awkward.
And not even like a matter of like, she can only do classic Who or Sarah Jane adventures tone. It's just that like,
this is not child appropriate.
Like, it just felt very like they're just actively trying. They're like trying a bit too hard, I guess. Like, sort of the territory.
Almost like they're trying too hard to be a bit dark. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and then like, we end on a joke about, the Prime Minister looks a bit young, doesn't he? After all this horrible shit they've seen, and it's just like, I don't know. I feel like a more somber ending probably would have been.
I almost feel like someone from a producer or somebody was like, yeah, but end on a happy note, would you? End on a joke.
Literally, what's his name? Made Land Before Time and American Tail. Can't think of his name right now. The animation director.
Don Bluth.
Don Bluth. Yeah, literally Don Bluth. You throw whatever you want at the kids. Traumatize the hell out of them. Just give them a happy ending.
Like, you know, I know these are clearly aimed at an older audience anyway by virtue of all the swearing that comes in and
Yeah.
out here and there and all that. But it is just like, it's like they either go a bit too far, or there are moments where I'm just like, okay, this feels like they're just kind of undercutting it now. So like
Yeah,
they
it feels like
can't
the producer suddenly went,
feels a
this
bit
went too dark.
inconsistent.
We're not going to completely cut all of it, but could you make it a little bit more cheeky?
Hmm.
Which is something
Which
also
is
I would add that
which
the
is
Sixth Doctor
almost
suffered from too.
which in a way is almost too bad because I could almost see this with like a couple tweaks and obviously no swearing being like a new Who episode.
Almost, kind of, yeah.
Not a classic, but definitely
Yeah.
definitely a modern Who episode.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like, of course, it's just also funny because this is Barry Letts writing it, and like, um, I don't know. It's like I guess I wasn't expecting this tone from him either, given the like few writing credits he has on Doctor Who. Even then, they're more like unofficially, technically, because he's admitted to writing it since the like after the fact, but it was more he was the producer, and back then the producers weren't allowed to write, so it
Air
was either
quotes.
rewrites that so it was like uncredited rewrites or co-wrote something but didn't get credit for it. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, again, we're not. It doesn't get like to the point of me going, okay, what the fuck, entirely. But it's still
It still
riding that
reaches a
line of
borderline where
like,
it does tends to take you out of it a little bit and just make you go, what am
yeah,
I listening to here?
yeah.
I
I
am
mean,
finding it a little funny we're having this discussion right after talking about Hellraiser.
Right?
well, again, Hellraiser, I expect the tone that's going for, but
Okay.
this is like, eh. And again, I think it's also just like Torchwood has very much soured me for the most part on that, because I guess again it's specifically a matter of this feels like it's trying too hard to have a darker tone, so it's Torchwood at its worst kind of a territory rather than Torchwood when it's really good. If it was like Torchwood when it's really good, I would probably be more willing to give it a pass, because again, like, I'm not against Sarah Jane getting into this sort of situation. It's just
Yeah,
like,
I'm not against
this is
certain darker
Torchwood at its
stories,
worst.
but this is like, this is getting borderline going too dark into some adult, air quotes, adult stuff.
Mm. And again, like Torchwood trying to be edgy, sort
Yeah,
of dark,
basically being
rather
edgy.
than...
Yeah, and I don't necessarily see that in this. Like, I don't see them going too far. I feel like it,
Like we
you know,
said,
what the,
it didn't
but
completely cross the line, but it got real close a few times.
Mhm.
Mm.
And it might also be that I've listened to a lot of Big Finish, and Big Finish does tend to get a lot closer to that line than Doctor Who on screen does.
I suppose that's a
And
possibility
they
too.
don't always pull it off better than Torchwood, but I'm probably more desensitized to it than a lot of others might be.
I guess at the same time, it also doesn't help that it's audio, so you kind of have to make up the visuals in
Make
your
up the
head.
visuals, and your visuals can go further than
Yeah.
you want them to.
Uh,
Apparently, it means that both me and Alex have overactive imaginations and just icked ourselves.
What? It's just a
Mm.
room full of naked people all being drained of their blood while covered in pinhead marks.
While a creepy old man's going on about his perversions. Oh lord, here we go.
I don't think he really talked about his sex life that much.
There was one moment where they dragged that on for a good minute.
Yeah, it's mainly a conversation between him and Sharp.
Sharp
Closer
Ron.
to the end, I think.
It's like the middle half
Yeah,
of the
Ron.
end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ron.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ron Sharp. Yeah.
The one where he was like, I couldn't stand to be touching you, sort of
Yeah, yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where they basically freely admit that this was more than just a on the surface relationship.
Yeah, we're basically like Butley is like, oh yeah, he sees it as like a loving relationship, and Sharp was like, yeah, it was never that, and you've been deluding yourself the whole time. I was basically forced into this because I knew what would happen otherwise.
Mm.
Which definitely is not information we have in the beginning. So it's
Yeah, some of that information is
that's
useful, but at the same time, it starts to carry on a bit.
right. But I know, I mean, just like some of the stuff like that is why I like the gradual reveal. I guess I can see like when he yeah. I think I know the exact lines that bothered you, and I don't know how to comment on that otherwise. But yeah, in terms of like where it fell into the story is what I mean, is where I was saying like it's I like how the reveals were sprinkled out that way.
Yeah.
But as for what I disliked, I'm gonna go with something a little more generic, and that's just it was like whenever she went back to talk with Josh, and I think for part of it I don't know if I doubt she was going back and talking with him while he was plugged into the machine. So I guess it was after she unplugged him. It wasn't always clear to me. And I don't think it wasn't even always clear what he was saying at times. I think it was just kind of like muffled or distorted. And it was like without the visual, I was having a really hard time even trying to figure out what was going on in some of those scenes. And it seemed like there were quite a few of them. So it was like there were times where I'm just like I'm kind of lost, and I really wish I could have a visual of what exactly is going on. Especially since I think Josh was plugged into the machines, which in theory
Initially.
should mean that some of his age was, like he would have been prematurely aged to like the guy that died in the beginning, but they never make any reference to that, even though it was only for a short time. It would have only been he might have lost a year off his life or 2 years off his life.
Yeah, they had just hooked him up, so if he did lose anything, it wasn't a lot, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I wasn't quite sure if it was like because he mentioned talking to the
And
B&B.
they never really
So I'm
mentioned
guessing
when the
he was
aging
there
actually.
overnight.
They never really mentioned when the aging actually starts either. So
I know they mentioned what was his name, Toby or whatever. It's not on the
initial
thing.
victim. Yeah,
Yeah, like he was gone for like a week or two, I think, and he aged like 70 years.
yeah.
So I would think Josh, having been imprisoned overnight, probably like would have aged a year. It would have been my guess, but you don't. Yeah, it's hard to tell, and they don't really go into explain
my
it.
thing is that this is all also attached to some supernatural stuff too, which you don't know when that actually is going to actually officially kick in and start taking from him. I mean, they have him hooked up to machines which are going to get the stuff out of him. But
the supernatural stuff is the acupuncture. So basically, that the ritual is kind of ongoing, and as the blood is drawn from him, it's kind of controlling the key, because they thought there were magic words, but actually the magic words were fake. There were never magic words to begin with. That was just a ruse so that Butley wouldn't get killed. So the only magic part to it was really the acupuncture.
Oh, I get it now. Okay, that's why the magic words were basically "Mary had a little lamb."
Right.
Its face was white as snow.
That said, since there's just the three of us, I will say I don't know. My honorable mention for least favorite, and I'm still kind of unsure where I feel on this, is that, especially this being 2002, I feel like there weren't a lot of gay characters, and definitely not in Doctor Who at this point, and even in Big Finish, I don't think there were that many. So coming straight out the gate with like the two most prominent gay characters we've probably seen in Big Finish to that point are the two villains of the story. Like, I am not saying gay people can't be villains, but given the history all the way from the Hays Code up until that point, it kind of feels like it's carrying on a bad tradition more than being a
Yeah.
one-off thing. If that happened now, I probably if this came out in 2022 instead of 2002, I probably would not have that criticism because there's been a lot of gay characters in Doctor Who, many of them pretty positive. But this being in 2002 is a whole different context, and I'm a lot less
I would
comfortable
also
with
at the
it.
same time argue that most of these people are still working, so gray area. There definitely could be possibly something to that, but I couldn't say for sure.
Well, I'm not saying do it like as in like they're actually homophobic or
Yeah.
something. I'm just saying the fact that this is during a time when gay people are still trying to get represented in media, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll represent you as villain 1 and villain 2." And yeah, that's the part that I dislike about that.
Yeah, one being a 300-year-old, basically
Vampire.
predator.
Yeah.
And
Well,
creepers.
yeah, and sexual predator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, which like I basically went over because I was like, it's too low hanging fruit. But yeah, that was also very, oh god, here we go.
Like I couldn't like I either would have had to bring it up now or bring it up at final thoughts, but I wasn't going to end this without talking about it.
Yeah.
All right, moving from that cheery note to favorite scenes, Matt.
Actually, now that I realize what that scene was about, I thought it was already funny that the magic words were "Mary had a little lamb," but now that it's literally, it's actually just a whole bunch of bunk, and it just is what comes out of the machines already. That's actually really kind of amusing.
Okay.
Like just the underhanded, quiet, reserved "f you" to one of the main villains.
Yeah. Especially because it also means that he's clearly been doing different magic, like bullshit words this whole time.
Quite
I mean, I
possibly.
doubt he was doing it. I doubt he's been doing it from the get-go, given that Mary Had a Little Lamb only goes back to the 1800s.
Yeah. So
Did you look that up, or did you already know
I
that?
did. I actively
Okay.
looked that up because I was like, hang on a minute.
Well,
Is this
he might
actually
have
that old?
he might have picked it up as a thing when he got to this point.
Like, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Like it would not surprise. Hell, he might not even
Something to
be
save his
regularly.
skin.
Yeah, he might not even be regularly saying that. Maybe he realized he was probably getting listened in on, so he figured he'd do something like that to mess with him.
Yeah. Oh, but the bop and the bop show up.
All right, Alex, favorite scene.
God, I have a few, but I'm gonna go with after Sarah's rescued Josh and they're back at the place they're staying at in the village, and they're having breakfast, and the woman's just like, "Okay, I know you like a big fat piece of bacon," and he just runs off to vomit, and it's just like, he's from London, isn't he? Oh well, there you
Yeah,
go.
I didn't understand that.
I think it was a matter of like, with what he'd been through and what they're talking about, seeing like meat for some reason just threw him off, or just like it might have been any food would have, but I
Oh,
think it was
okay.
like he was still wonky from the previous day.
I thought it had to do with the fact that he hates the country and he's from London, and I was like, do they make bacon different in the country?
According to my pizzas, they make bacon very differently in Canada.
True.
It's a little pink. Could that get a little more cooking?
All right, so on to me then, and I'm going to have to agree with something I think Matt referenced earlier on. I think it was Matt. But Sarah Jane as the in her role pretending to be the cleaner.
Oh,
When she
that was
just showed
Alex.
up. That was Alex. Okay. Yeah, the scene when she first shows up and she's just ruffled her clothing and she's putting on the voice and everything was just perfect, spot on.
Hmm.
All right, least favorite scenes, Matt.
Well, I think you can already guess one of mine. Villain 1 is an absolute creepy little son of a gun
Mm.
and freely admits to it when in private. It's like, ah.
Yeah.
Did not need that additional thing on there. It'd be one thing if these two were at least ex-lovers or something, but they'd keep going.
Mm.
And it's just like, ew. Oh no. Ah.
The funny thing is if it only ever really came up in the bit where like the bodyguard assumes he's being seduced, but he's like, no, 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 I want you to get me a gun.
That
Would
too.
be
That was
fine.
yeah.
Like that to me would be fine because it's like the guy assuming something and then being like, oh
Assuming
no, no,
something
no,
weird.
that's
Yeah.
not what I want from you.
I know you're like, I don't want that from you. I want a gun.
Yeah.
I
Like
want
if it
one of
was
your little
just
bang bang pistols.
it's like if it was that it would be fine, but like they do drag it out a bit to like the fact that like it's one of those things of
He
like
does at
we
least in
don't
that
really
scene
need to
too
hammer it
focus
in.
on the just being that he wants a pistol, but there are still undertones and it's just like
Mm.
because once again this man is a very 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 creepy old man.
Yeah. Um
He's had 300 years of doing this too.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But anyways, Alex, your least favorite?
Oh, let's see. Honestly, I'm gonna go with God, there's a few. You know what? Two scenes that are basically the same, so going with them doesn't feel like I'm cheating. Both times that Josh stumbles into being caught. Like, oh, I'm gonna go this way, you go that way, and then he immediately gets caught. And then like later where he's like, I'm gonna get a closer listen, and he basically just barges in and gets caught and has to be saved by
That's
Sarah
right. I
like
forgot about
immediately after. But it's just like, oh, for God's sake, mate, you think you would have learned from
Last time you got caught and you got acupuncture from hell. You think you learned your lesson the first time.
Yeah.
Let's make another issue of myself. A day later.
Like if it had been implied that he'd like tripped and fell through the door or something, that would be like one thing. But they just basically the audio makes it sound like he's like, oh, I'm gonna get a closer listen, and then just barges into the room. So it's like, wait, what?
Yeah, well, he's straight up. He's like, yeah, he's like, what's going on in there? And she was just like, hold back and wait. And he just, barges into the room.
He barges in there like he's supposed to be a British police officer, just going, well done, well done, well done. What's all this?
There's a reason. There's a reason there's a reason the pseudonym she calls him is Harry.
Harry Sullivan's an imbecile.
But yeah, I think that's an issue with the dynamic of this show because in normal Doctor Who, like you have the Doctor who's supposed to be the brains, but kind of eccentric and absent-minded, and in the companion, if there's one companion, then they're usually clever and clumsy, right? They're not as experienced, but they have some sort of wiles to make up for it.
Mm-hmm.
But here, all the cleverness goes to Sarah Jane, she doesn't need to be eccentric and alien because she's not the Doctor. So then there's just clumsy and complaining for Josh. And so far, the only skill that he's really shown is arson, which, I mean,
Which will solve
yeah,
some issues,
I
but not
mean,
all issues.
Ace was really good at arson too, but I feel like she had more of a personality than that.
Yeah. Oh, well, he has more than a personality than that too. He likes lager. And a bunch of things just fell in my room. Hello.
Ah,
Y'all can sit down there now. That's your problem now. Yeah, I cleaned my room, by the way, today, and it's apparently only made things worse.
they're apparently not great. Now it's time for my least favorite scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, I've been I've been debating whether or not I like or am bothered by the like implication of like Taoism being magic. But I think I'm not gonna go with that because I mean I do think the idea of like the religion actually or a religion or philosophy actually having some validity. I think that's very Doctor Who, and I think it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of me like looking for something to complain about. I guess I'm gonna
Mm.
go with the scene we already talked about, which is them like giggling at the prime minister having like clearly been one of the clients or whatever, because it's just like
Yeah.
that if the person's youth, looking younger, then that probably means they literally bled the youth out of some poor like youth.
Yeah, some
So
poor
like
like young adult
Mm.
that
right.
just happened to stumbled into the wrong place at the wrong time with these
So,
people.
yeah, and so it doesn't seem like
Yeah.
something they'd be laughing at that much.
Mm. Yeah.
Just kind of.
Mm.
All right, final thoughts.
Goes back to me.
Yep.
As we've mentioned and we've covered several times at this point, there's some moments where we're just kind of like, oh, this is kind of tone deaf. Oh, this is kind of reaching a point. It doesn't quite cross it, but it got really uncomfortably close. I will say that despite that constantly coming up, that's only when we have to, of course, have the negative parts of this story. A majority of this does not go there. A majority of this is actually a pretty solid story, in my opinion. It's just that it just has a few moments where it kind of reaches that weird borderline. The rest of this is very solidly executed, very good sound design, very good voice acting from the main cast in particular. And I mean, it wouldn't be effective with the villains either if they were doing a bad job of their voice acting either. So, I mean, for what it is, kudos for doing that very well to the point that it kind of. Um, I'm just yeah. I believe Bill said you said that you got lost at one point. I don't recall being lost in that because I don't know. Maybe it's just I have an ear for certain things. I could have sworn I heard them like walking through grass and stuff, so I knew immediately that they were outside the next scene. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Then I think Sarah said that she was putting him somewhere when she was trying to hide the guy. Again, my brain is not remembering names. But
Yeah.
but yeah, otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, outside my fact my brain doesn't want to remember names at all, like a sponge today, and just real full of holes. Otherwise, this is was a really good ride. Otherwise, and was at least very interesting. But it does reach a few moments where it almost does try to cross the line. But thankfully, does not go that far. It just kind of takes you out for a moment.
Mm.
I guess that's my general thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Right, Alex?
Yeah, for me this is like I feel like this is better than Comeback in some ways, but kind of worse in others, kind of a thing. So I feel like they're kind of level for me in that like one has some things that are stronger and the other has other things that are weaker. Like so they just kind of balance out to being on the same level but for different reasons. And both individually flawed for different reasons. And I feel like some of my issues with this, it really just does to a point come down to a matter of taste. It's like I don't know. Again, like if they like tweak this a bit, and I mean it would have to involve the Doctor at this point. But if they tweaked this and adapted it for a modern Who episode, I would probably be more likely to enjoy the take, depending. That could end up being worse, depending on who is handling it. But
Josh probably would have died if it were for on-air Who.
yeah, probably. But also
Of old
because
age.
it's yeah. I mean, for one thing, he also would have been like just a one-off character anyway, if this was done on the main show.
Yeah.
But like, it's just yeah, like as was brought up before, it's just like, oh great, two gay villains and one of them's a 305-year-old predator. Great, okay, that old chestnut. Like, it's just that irked me, but I was willing to like. I think even part of it is just the voice acting, like really just going like it's doing its job because you're not supposed to like be enjoying this, but it's just kind of like I don't know if I need this in a Doctor Who adjacent story, because a lot of the times that we rag on Torchwood like really hard are when they get into like this kind of sexual deviancy type, like predatory or outright sexual assault in some cases stuff, and it's just like, can we like not go there please? Again, I mean, hell, that bloody Eighth Doctor story that me and Matt both were like, no thank you, never listening to that again, was basically a woman getting continuously sexually assaulted. So
And then some.
by having been turned to that like hive mother thing, and it's just like, yeah, could just do without that. Doctor related things moving forward. You don't need it.
I mean, just
You
sci-fi
really
in
don't.
general. A lot of sci-fi seems to think, oh, this is for an adult audience. That means it needs to involve sexual assault.
Yeah, and it's like, again, like Torchwood at its best was very adult topics in the sense of like, well, this definitely could not clearly be handled on Doctor Who. Like Adrift, you could argue that Adrift is still very like needs a gigantic trigger warning over it, but it's still like, okay, this is something that Doctor Who can't, that Torchwood can, and it doesn't necessarily feel like it's crossing a line. Whereas this, again, this doesn't necessarily like completely cross a line, but it's also just like, did we really need that element? And the funny thing is like, if you get rid of like Will Butley being a creepy old man, and he was just like a senile old man, like he was just like basically senile and just a bit weird, but was still otherwise gay, but there was no implication that like, he'd been essentially forcing himself on younger men, or at least cajoling younger men to go to bed with him. If you got rid of that aspect, then I wouldn't mind as much that they're both gay and happen to be villains, because their gayness would be incidental.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Whereas making him very obvious. I mean, he basically sounds like that fucking dude from Family Guy at
Yeah.
certain points, and it's like,
Herbert.
yeah, it's like, can we not go there? Like that, like if it didn't go there, then I wouldn't have cared.
Children.
Yeah, like if he didn't have that aspect of his character there, them being gay wouldn't have bothered me because it's like their gayness as wouldn't be part of their villainy, arguably. Whereas now, at least for him, not so much for Ron, but for him it is
Yeah.
by virtue of that
That's
addition.
an extra layer that
And
we
it's
did not
like,
need for him. Yeah.
yeah. Whereas if they were just villains who happened to be gay, I would have been like, okay, fine, whatever. um But yeah, it's just like, god damn it. Like, you know, they've already got enough scummy shit with all the murdering they're doing. Do we really need to add that? But yeah, like I and you know, I listened to this ultimately like 3 times. Because like we were almost gonna do it last week, so I'd listened to it twice. I actively held off re-listening to it again to refresh until today because I was like, I don't think I could listen to this 4 times. So I'm just gonna hold off as long as I possibly can before the third listen. And I'm not sure if I will ever revisit this because, like, again, like it's not. It has really good parts, but it also has parts that just and elements that just drag it down. So like this we'll see where we go from here. I'm not like willing to give up on this or anything, but we'll just, you know, I'm hoping things improve. Like just kind of hope this is a stumbling block out the starting gate. But yeah, that's a battle I've got.
All right. So yeah. So this story is, when I saw the title, I was wondering where they were going with that. Um, and I thought they had, it had some really interesting connections to Taoism, Zen Buddhism, even. So that was really, they were faithful to the original sources of these philosophies, which is nice because sometimes modern stuff fucks that up a bit. So they were successful there. I thought the magic words thing was a bit weird, but then we find out that it's all a ruse, so that worked out. Um, and yeah, as I mentioned, as always with Big Finish, there's always some stuff it seems where they do a little too much with it, and I'm just not able to hear it clearly or something like that. Which was my biggest complaint, and also the fact that again, some of the issues here if they came out now when there's a lot more gay representation, I wouldn't be as bothered by, although all the stuff Alex said is definitely valid. The fact that his gayness is part of his villainy is still a problem, especially given given the political climate. But even if you took that away, the fact that the gay characters are the villains, something coming out 20 years ago, it was just too much a part of the cultural movement of that really being the only way gay people were portrayed. And this wasn't even exactly a sympathetic gay villain like like Hades and Hercules or something, who's more camp than actually gay. But that's neither here nor there. Um, Otherwise, I liked the structure of this story. Um, I didn't necessarily feel squicked out or anything like that the way the others have mentioned. Um, I'm still debating how much I should penalize it for the faults that it has, but I found it to be definitely more good than bad. I was also a bit surprised that Ellie, in particular, came back because, I had seen the cast list, but I also remember Sarah Jane talking about trying to keep their lives separate from one another. So it was definitely surprising she was not a one-off in that respect. So I'm curious to see if that's leading to something or they were just trying to build up a recurring cast.
Hmm.
That's either is possible at the moment.
Right.
I guess to
Eh,
be fair, I think she only directly interacted with Josh.
Right. Which I think she kind of implied they were former lovers. If I understood that
Possibly.
scene right. But that's about it for my final thoughts. So ratings.
If, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe I gave was last week or last time a 4 or a
Last time you
3.5.
gave a 4.0.
I gave a 4.0. I was just thinking, if it wasn't for again a few moments to take away from it, this could have been an easy 4.5. So yeah, I think I'm still stuck at 4.0 on this one. There's still enough really good stuff there. It's just a few moments need to like be either rewritten or chopped out, I think. And this could have been an easy 4.5.
Okay, Alex.
Yeah, same. As I said before, I kind of put this on the same level as Comeback just for different reasons. So yeah, this gets a 4 from me as well.
And of course, I was the positive one on Comeback, so I need to decide, is it as good as Comeback or not as good? Um I'll give it like a 4.25. Um I think I'm going to round it down. I think the complaints are legitimate. I think they're not big, but they're enough to deduct just enough to drop it to a 4.0, which is still a good score. So it's not like it's
Yeah.
a penalized score really.
Yeah.
But that brings us to, of course, an average of 4.0. And let's get that over to the. Actually, does the master sheet even have the season yet? I think it does. It does not. The person with the expert in master sheet maintenance has not been with us.
Yeah, I think he's been going back and forth again recently, from what I understand.
I am not surprised. Um, so with a 4.0, that places this. I'm pretty sure we have a big chunk of 4.0s. So
Mm.
it is number 220 out of a total of no, not 477 things reviewed, out of a total of 444 things reviewed. And it is on par with Sixth Doctor, The Last Adventure Stage Fright, First Doctor Adventure, The Great White Hurricane, Big Finish Class, Now You Know, Trial of the Valyard, Neverland, and that's it for on par with Big Finish.
The Sirens of Time also seems to be a 4.0, but that hasn't been
Oh yeah, that has not been sorted yet.
rejiggered yet. Yeah.
It is not as good as Sixth Doctor, The Last Adventure, The Brink of Death, Big Finish, The Chaos Pool, or Susan's War, Assets of War. And it is better than 10th Doctor Adventure, Technophobia, The Jago and Lightfoot Revival, Acts 1 and 2, or Big Finish, The Condemned. All right, let us know in the comments if you've listened to this story. What do you think of it? Don't forget to like this video since you've listened so far, and subscribe on YouTube to get our exports every week, or follow us on Twitch to get notified when we stream. Next time, we continue with our annual look at Sarah Jane Smith with Sarah Jane Smith, Test of Nerve, written by David Bishop and starring Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith. We'll see you then.
Just praying it's not test of the viewer's nerve. See you all later.